talking with decibels.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Vicky Sparkle. And we're going to talk about DeSantis versus Reedy Creek again because there have been some developments. There's going to be a meeting tomorrow. It's Wednesday. That's when they usually do their meetings to discuss voiding that agreement.
Right, why it should be null and void.
Why it should be nullified. For those of you who don't know, Disney, basically, their lawyers kind of shadow wrote the agreement.
They didn't shadow wrote, they wrote it and then put somebody else's name on it.
Put somebody else's name on it. Well, it's kind of conflict of interest. You should put your own name on it.
Yeah, from our understanding, a company can't enter a contract with itself, and it was supposed to be Walt Disney World as one entity. Reedy Creek was
Right.
an independent governing, branch, but everybody kind of knew Disney ran it, and they basically just, proved it with emails, and Disney kind of outed themselves in comments that were made previously.
So everybody knew that Disney and Reedy Creek were pretty much interchangeable. And it's kind of like, oh god, this really dates me, but you remember Green Acres?
Yes.
Sam Drucker, where he's
Don't remember the character.
okay, he's like, well, he had like 19 different hats he wore. He basically did like everything in the town. He's like the postmaster, and he was the guy that ran the drugstore, and he was whatever. It's like, okay, now you're talking to the postmaster. Now
Yeah.
that's basically it. Mickey's putting his mustache on. You're like, okay, I'm Reedy Creek now, guys. Honest, that's what we are. So yeah, let's talk about this and talk about the loopholes they think they have to sort of
Right,
do it.
it's a long agenda, so.
All right, before we get to any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. If you subscribe, you'll get a woohoo.
Woohoo!
A woohoo. So you put this up on Pirates and Princesses.
Yeah.
I'm scared to reveal who I am to you and fear that you won't accept the real me. I like the idea of a relationship, but as soon as we get close, it is so unfamiliar to me to the point that I'm overwhelmed with all this intimacy. I avoid committing or saying I love you so I don't have to risk rejection.
Bro, what the fuck is YouTube, bro?
Yeah, so basically what's going on is they have this agenda, and what the agenda item 8.1 is what the focus is on this. And they're looking to find, the reasoning to nullify the agreement that Disney made with Reedy Creek. They have a whole big, there's a whole big document, which we're gonna look at in a minute. But basically they said 8.1 is for the approval of legislative findings regarding and declare the February 8th, 2023 development agreement and declaration of restrictive covenants entered into by the Reedy Creek Improvement District and Walt Disney Parks and Resorts US. See how there's two separate entities?
Yes, supposed to be.
Void and unenforceable. They're asking for direction to litigation to see what needs to be done to have it terminated or stricken from public record of Orange and Osceola counties. So looking to see what they can do. Now there's a couple issues here with this. One is the fact that we mentioned that Disney is supposed to be a separate entity from Reedy Creek. That was how it was set up. But they basically wrote their own damn contract, which we did a video for, and put the other guy's name on it, and then said, oh, we're separate entities, but you wrote your own contract that you signed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a problem. But they said that another issue they're having. People are like, well, they did have their meetings. They about the two meetings they required. They did put it in the Orlando Sentinel. Yes. But they also had to send out mail notices of intent to all affected property owners before the first public hearing. The issue is some of the places that have been affected were the city of Bay Lake and the city of Lake Buena Vista. Okay, and you're like, but those are Disney. Yeah, but Disney set up in the past that they're separate entities. So they're part of the district. Like Disney's part of the district and they're part of the district, but they're all like client. The people that should have been notified separately.
Right.
So they never had their two meetings. Those city areas never agreed to a document, never signed the document. So you can't say the whole district agreed when the whole district didn't agree.
Yeah.
That's my way I understand it.
Yeah.
So if you go to the document, it'll make more sense when you see the document. Now, I'm not a lawyer.
What?
I'm not going to claim I understand all this. This is how it reads to me, and this is the first time Neon's looking at it, see how it reads to him. But this is the document here. They're talking about the different issues. And the development agreement affects property owners in the following ways. This is the agreement that no one's gonna agree to this, okay? Under the terms of the development agreement, Disney agrees, that on a prospective basis, the development in the district must be allowed to the maximum levels authorized under the comprehensive plan. And they're basically what it is the development agreement gives all development rights to Disney for the whole district, including the cities that, are separate. Which, basically means that they can control and develop all the right, anything there. They have to get their approval, written approval on proposed developments. And then Disney has to decide whether or not they're gonna agree to it.
Oh, okay.
So nobody can develop anything unless Disney agrees to it, you have to have Disney's
Yeah.
written consent. Disney, in an agreement with Reedy Creek that Disney drafted. I wonder why this could be considered a conflict of interest. Under the terms of the development agreement, the height of any building constructed by any property owner within the district is controlled by and approved by Disney.
Because they don't want buildings like skyscrapers polluting their skyline for their park.
They polluted it enough with the stupid Skyliner, it looks like shit.
Yeah, it does.
It looks tacky. I mean, I get why they put it in, and it's kind of fun to ride, but it's tacky looking. Under the terms of the development agreement, the district must fund, design, and construct, or cause to be constructed, certain infrastructure projects, including a number of road projects. As set forth in the development agreement, these road projects must be funded by general obligation bonds financed with taxes levied against the district using a combination of funds on hand and new bond funds. In other words, the development agreement requires that Disney to levy and collect property tax revenue from all taxpayers in the district to finance these bonds for these road projects. So basically, the Disney, you can't build unless they authorize. You can only build to what stipulations they say you can build to. And you can totally go and do roads and stuff like that and pay for that. But you have, and Disney's gonna be helpful because they're gonna sell you the land, to do these roads, to make,
okay.
the district pay for them at no more than market value.
Okay. How
Right, but you must fund, design, and construct these projects, basically what Disney says you have to.
Okay.
Okay, so, they're talking about the two meetings we had and all that. But one thing they said that was interesting was, they did advertise it in Orlando Sentinel, but this was interesting. Prior to those meetings, both the January 25th and February 8th board meetings, the district did not put its agenda up on the website. That's what this is, it came from the website, the agenda. They did not put their agenda of the meetings on the websites. They didn't put the agendas in those articles either. The district did not upload agenda packages to the website until March, after the board of supervisors was appointed to the governor's office. So those two meetings that were the ones in question. They gave 6 minutes to discussion in one meeting, 1 or 2 minutes in the second meeting. They never put the agendas up on the website ahead of time. They put it up after all this was done in March when Disney or when the DeSantis found out about it. Yeah, they put it up then.
Yeah. That's totally on the up and up, right?
Yeah, these are the reasons they're giving to avoid it. Then they come down here, okay. So under the new agreement, any local government laws, policies governing development were effective February 8th, shall govern under the development agreement for the duration of the agreement. Okay. 2 municipalities in the boundaries of the district. Bay Lake, the city of Bay Lake, and the city of Lake Buena Vista. Okay, so prior to February 27th, 2023, those were the two municipalities within the district. Okay? And they said, at the time the development agreement was approved by the district and executed, they had exclusive authority over the planning and development regulations and stuff of their area. Okay? And they said, at the time the development agreement was executed, the district has no authority or jurisdiction to approve or regulate development related activities on property located in these municipalities. So what's going on is they weren't included in that. Like Disney signed it, like we own all of that.
Right.
But they're separate entities, like the district or Reedy Creek Improvement District was a separate entity.
Yeah.
And Disney World is a separate entity. So they would have had to have agreements, from my understanding. And they didn't have agreements. So under the development agreement, the district assigns Disney all the development rights of the district. Even if they're held by Bay Lake or Buena Vista, which they didn't go through the steps at Bay Lake and Lake Buena Vista to give Disney the rights to do that. So you see
okay.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, so
That's
that's
what it seems like.
okay. So again, if we're interpreting this correctly, because we're gonna have armchair.
Yes, and I'm not a lawyer. This is how it seems.
Well, I went to Legal Joe's channel and
I don't
he
really
said,
fucking care what Legal Joe says. I mean, I do care. I do care what Legal Joe says because he knows what he's talking about. I'm just saying, from our looking at this without the legal background, this is how it comes
this is
across.
how it comes across. So basically, they're gonna do to Disney what Disney did to them and find a little tiny
It seems
loophole,
that way.
push their way through.
It seems that way. So they go on about that for quite a while. Here they talk about this here, and this is where they kind of sum it up. They said the benefits of the agreement are one-sided. The development agreement entitles Disney to the exclusive use of future development rights in the district, delegates district zoning powers to Disney, allows Disney to obligate the district to construct private facilities in aid of Disney's development projects. Meaning, we can make the district pay for our damn roads and infrastructure,
Right.
for our projects. But they can't do it unless we tell them they can't. But when we tell them they can't, they have to jump, and they have to pay what we say. Okay, nobody in the right mind would fucking agree to this.
Oh,
Then they said the district,
apparently they did.
yeah, I know, the district receives nothing in return. They said the only theoretical benefit the district gets is that if Disney obligates the district to construct public facilities that require land that Disney owns, they will not request payment for the land in excess of fair market value.
So they're not gonna say, well, okay, that acre of land is gonna cost you $1 billion now because.
But yeah, but did you catch the first part? When Disney obligates the district to construct public facilities that require land that Disney owns,
Yes.
still sell it to fair market value.
So you need to buy this thing that we could.
Because we told you to.
Because we told you to, and we're gonna charge you $1 billion for it.
And then you pay for it.
Have a magical day.
Yeah. We can't charge you for the market value,
Oh my God.
but we're gonna make you pay for it so that you can do the development projects that we're demanding you do.
Oh, Disney.
Because they talk about down here about how development lasts, or their agreement lasts for 30 years, with the King Charles clause or whatever.
Yeah.
So basically, like, this is why we need this thing nullified. It's ridiculous. It restricts everybody except for Disney. Disney can demand that the new board have to build, roads and stuff. But they didn't take into consideration that they went to all this trouble to keep the city of Bay Lake and the city of Lake Buena Vista as separate entities they owned, but then they didn't go through the steps with them.
Mm-hmm.
They just we own this, and we're Disney. Well, I thought Disney was and Reed Creek were separate.
Yeah, right.
So wasn't Disney the city of Lake Buena Vista and Disney the city of Bay Lake? Aren't they separate entities? I mean, you document this article how they went and made sure they were.
Yeah. So, yeah. God,
I can't wrap my head around that because the arrogance.
No, that's basically it. Disney's like, well, this is how it's always been. This is how it's always going to be. If you want to pay for our shit now, you're going to do it on what we say because we own Florida.
Yeah, we are Florida. So we don't care if the board gets put in. We're going to write our own covenants. Put the lawyer for Reedy Creek's name on it. Pass the covenants with wrote the agenda too, so that people knew what to vote on. Pass the covenants, which is Disney's own contract with itself, which we're not allowed to do. And in the contract, Disney controls everything, and the district gets the right of paying for stuff Disney tells them they have to pay for.
Yeah, pretty much. That's not a very good deal. It's not a very good deal for Florida. Now, look, to be fair, again, not being a lawyer, I have no idea how this is going to ultimately play out. I really don't. I can see that Florida definitely I think has a case against Disney in this situation there. And this doesn't have anything to do with the Don't Say Gay Bill or whatever. It's just like, Disney was doing some underhanded stuff, trying to make sure that they got to keep their power. Then the flip side is, it did seem like Florida was asleep at the wheel. Like, they should have been like, hey, did you send your notice out? Did we read this thing? And they didn't do it.
Or they were watching the website and it never got posted until well after. It's pretty obvious that Disney was deliberately trying to be underhanded in this. At least that's how it comes across.
Yeah.
Two people look out looking in. There's a lot of questionable things here. For Disney to have this loophole that they did this how we win, I see a lot of things about. I would think that they could argue and win for the state of Florida because Disney just basically wrote their own contract for themselves for saying that they're separate entities when they clearly are not.
Yeah.
And you can't. Companies aren't allowed to write their own contract. You can't contract with yourself. Okay?
Yeah.
So that they got.
Self-dealing, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what it was. I mean, there's no question that's what it was. So that's one half of this part. The other part is DeSantis is gonna try to appoint, FDOT to inspect the monorail system. This is coming from our writer Mike. Mike Phelan says that, Disney's ability to self-govern will be trimmed back more. Mickey will have self-inspecting, when have the self-inspecting privileges neutered. You know, here's my thing. They keep saying neutered, but that's very sexist of you. Why is it always neutered? I mean,
You should rip that bitch Minnie's ovaries right
I
out.
mean, I'm just saying, I thought
Rip that her
it's
uterus.
sexist. I thought you were about, you know, Ricky, all the media keeps using it, and I'm just like, it's kind of sexist. Anyway, I get what they're saying, I'm just kidding, I gotta clarify, I'm kidding, because some dipshit in the comments be like, oh my god. Like, no, I'm kidding, okay?
You must be new. We
Yeah.
talk about this all the time. We've been doing it for like 5 years.
So the Orlando Sentinel said they have learned from the Florida Department of Transportation, the FDOT, could take over state inspection duties regarding Disney's popular transit system, so the rumor was true. Amendment for Senate Bill 1250 would ask FDOT, with overseeing safety standards for transit systems such as the monorail that are located within an independent special district created by local acts which have boundaries with two contiguous counties, whatever. Basically, they're gonna put through, they have to have, inspection. Honestly, I don't see how it's a bad thing. I think that, I know that Disney does have their internal inspectors, and so far, they've done fine. But the monorail is a piece of shit.
Yeah, I think beyond just, inspecting it for safety, they need to recommend it be replaced, which they might do. They might be like, hey, because I heard that the lifespan for Bombardier or Bombardier monorail, is that particular model going on decades?
Well, here's my next question. If they would have to replace the monorail system, would it be the new district that would be responsible for that? Because that's a public transportation.
It might be. Then at that point, they might be able to regulate it more. Oh my God! Next thing will be like, oh yeah, you gotta pay a tax to get on the monorail because it's public transportation. You gotta pay.
You have to pay for the monorail.
Get your monorail pass, like a bus pass.
I don't know, because I'm like,
Turnstiles.
if this is the case, you would think that it's a public transportation
Right.
system, that might be the district's responsibility to pay for it. What I do know is, what it reminds me of, all this is the self-inspection on the monorail, is like, if you ever been hurt at a company, and they send you to a company doctor, the company doctor's like, oh, your neck's broken, they don't tell you that, but your neck's broken, but you're fine to go back to work. And then you go to your doctor, and your doctor's like, oh, hell no, your neck's broken, I'm showing it to you. Because this happened to my father, because my dad had gotten injured at work, and he had a bad injury, and the company doctor's like, oh, no, you're fine, you can go back to work. And his own doctor is like, no, you can't. And they saw the x-rays, they could see that the break was there, and the company doctor was trying to send him back to work. And I think that happens a lot. The company inspector may potentially overlook the fact that the foundation's crumbling.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I'm not trying to, question people's ethics. I'm just saying, I question Disney's ethics.
So,
Look, the used monorails wind up going to Vegas and they get refurbed. Those monorails are in nicer condition than Disney World's monorails.
Disney World models are terrible.
They're older models.
And they, like I said, they smell like pee.
Yeah.
And the foundation, the support structures from the monorail, they have pictures of them crumbling. They're in dire need of complete renovation. And Disney won't do it. And the thing is, all these people are cheering for Disney in this situation. What blows my mind is, part of the situation, besides the DeSantis thing, outside of that, is the fact that they want to inspect the monorails because the monorails could potentially be dangerous. They've had lots of trouble with them. Been on it when there was an emergency. There's the issue that they want to inspect attractions in case there's something that's wrong. They wanted to double check. Then there's the issue too about the Reedy Creek first responders, which aren't going to happen here, but now the new district's paying them, wants to give them a raise, wants to make sure they have the equipment they need. So you've been kind of put potentially in danger, arguably in danger sometimes when you're at the parks, without your knowledge. Because they might have just let something slide they should have let slide because, we're supposed to get 2 or 3 more years out of it. Or don't get them a new truck at the Reedy Creek first responders. They can just use SUVs or whatever, and then they don't push them at the time.
Yeah, we gotta build that new meeting room.
Right.
We don't have money for that. Fire trucks.
You know, I'm
I'm
good.
not paying extra for that.
You're all like, you're all like pissing on this, but the thing is, if you were in danger, it might have come. I don't know this. I'm not saying it would. I'm not. This is arguably, possibly, could have put in danger because they didn't have what they needed to get to you, and Disney kept allegedly not paying for things and then boasting, oh look, we have record savings this year.
Yeah, because it's like, how many corners did you cut, to get the record profits? Because that's their thing. It's like their executives get bonuses based on their profit margins, and it could be that like you only profited because, but it's like, oh look how much money I got in the bank because I haven't been paying the electric bill for 4 months. I haven't paid my rent for 4 months, so I got lots of money in the bank. Well, it doesn't mean you actually do. You just haven't been paying
Right.
the bills you're supposed to be paying.
So, like, this is what we're going to present tomorrow. I'm sure we're going to hear more about it in clarity, because this is all, like, gobbledygook legalese stuff, and we're going to probably have it broken down to make it easier. I'm sure Mickey will be surprised either. I'm interested to see what he said.
Sure, Lawyer Joe's going to be there, too.
Lawyer Joe, yeah. But, like, we are not lawyers. We're trying to interpret it based on, limited time and our not being lawyers. So that's the way it reads to us. Of course, I'm sure Legal Joe's gonna say something different. That's cool. He probably has more insight than we do. We're just telling you how we see it from our position.
Yeah, and again, I want to reiterate, I have no idea how this whole thing's going to play out. I mean, it looks to me like it's just a high-profile pissing match.
But how should it play out? Disney totally, I think, is out of line.
Yeah, I think they are.
Okay, so what the hell is Ella? Basically, it's a water bottle that collides with science to make a little magic.
Every time I hear the word science.
Alright, welcome back to
Listen,
Iron
man.
Madman, everybody. I hope you've been well.
Commercial
Today we're going
science.
to speculate a little bit
What
about
the
what
fuck?
this new DLC
Combines
is
with
going to be about.
science.
So you might have
Combines
heard
with
about the
science.
quote-unquote leak the other day. By the time I found out about it, it was already debunked as fake. So I didn't feel the need to explore what it was anymore, but it did remind me that I should make a video talking about what this DLC could be about, while also exploring some past From Software DLCs as a sort of like a way of helping us guess what this next one is going to be about. But the biggest thing on my mind is not really what characters or what parts of the lore we'll see in this DLC. It's, will time travel be involved at all? Because we know that's sort of a reoccurring thing in these FromSoft games. It's why in Dark Souls 1 we spend the whole game hearing about this fourth knight of Lyn named Artorias who walked the abyss. We see his grave, we meet his dog, and everybody can't stop gushing about how fucking cool he is. Then in the DLC we time travel to the past and find out, lo and behold, he was just nothing but a failure. And after we do everything right, history remembers him as this great hero. I don't know about you guys, but that's one of my favorite things about that DLC is narratively how it works. I also...
Honored Madman definitely overplays the Artorias was a loser angle. I get it, but you're being way over hyperbolic there. He did go down into the fucking abyss. Like he tried. It wasn't all made up.
love the visual of that cave full of humanity sprites, but that's unrelated.
Fucking
a lot of great stuff in Artorias and If you've
Crazy.
never played it, I recommend you should play it right now because
The play will get all the one.
And we also, there's some degree of time travel going on in Dark Souls 3 DLC, The Ring City. There might honestly be some weird time travel shenanigans going on throughout the entire game, but as they always say, no time works for Lothar, or at least they say that in Lordran, but I imagine it also works like that for Lothar too. We've all heard the theories that the hub world Firelink Shrine that we have in Dark Souls 3 is actually in the past, and that if you want to see it in present day, what it currently looks like is down in the untended grave beneath Lothar Castle, where we see a much darker version of the same place, the Dark Firelink Shrine, some have called it. It's even got a non-corrupted Udix Gundyr, who's one of my favorite bosses. Now that kind of makes the whole time travel thing a little muddy because he's corrupted in the past but not the present, or is this the past and is that the present? That's what I
Neither,
mean about
those
this
are
game.
two different
Time travel
timelines.
shenanigans aren't that easy to explain in anything, but they're even more confusing and convoluted.
There's one where he
than
came
FromSoft
late,
is. Which is probably for the best.
and then
It
he
makes
ends
me
up
feel less need
corrupted.
to devote lots and lots of time trying to unravel them. Now in the Ring City, we're also treated to something similar. When we finally
From
reach
sitting in the
Ulanor and
fucking
touch her
abyss so
egg,
long.
were transported to the
So
future.
it is the
I mean, some
past.
people believe that the entire Ring City and surrounding
And it
area is just an illusion, and it's
The future.
always looked like Gales Arena, but I'd have to argue that that just appears to be further in the timeline to me. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know for certain. I'd have to replay the Ring City again. It's been a while. It is one of my favorite DLCs, and I love the idea of Gale being the final big bad after he helped us out all the way through Ashes and Randall. But I'm getting a little off topic here. And since we're talking about weird, convoluted, possible time travel type situations and From Software, then we need to look no other than what many would call their best entries DLC.
Bloodborne.
Well, it's not my personal favorite FromSoft game. Its DLC is one of my favorite From Software DLCs. There's something about meeting and encountering all of the old hunters you'd heard so much about in the base game and literally seeing like the first hunt in this weird, twisted nightmare world that's like an inverted version of the world we'd already experienced. It felt very Dark Souls 1, but like with how they used the area in the beginning of the game and made it more in-depth and better, almost to the point of like being unrecognizable from what we saw before. It was a lot more noticeable in Dark Souls 1, but it really feels like they came into their own with recreating that first area for the Hunter's Nightmare. Just beautiful. And don't even get me started on the fishing hamlet or the Astral Clock Tower and getting there through the research hall. The Living Failures, Lady Maria, it's all just, I mean, that is a perfect ass DLC as far as I'm concerned. It just sucks that Bloodborne only had that one DLC. It's kind of weird to me that it only had one. Especially because Dark Souls 2 had 3 DLCs, and I don't know, it's just weird that it didn't even have 2, but there must have been some reason for that. Also, I'm not complaining there, but let's talk about my favorite of the mainline Dark Souls games, Dark Souls 2's DLC. Not as much blatant time travel shenanigans going on there. You do talk to Vendrick, which I thought was pretty cool, and there must be some type of spiritual time travel or whatever. But I guess the big question now is how would this time travel, if it is going to be present, how would it be implemented in this DLC for Elden Ring? Would we see it coming before the shattering? With Godfrey was still in charge, or maybe after Godfrey was put up, but still before the shattering? Perhaps we get the next certain demigods in the more coherent form. There's also another possibility that is entirely plausible. So if we examine this picture from semi-remote, then there's 2 big things about the Earth Tree in question here. The first is that this appears to be both the Earth Tree and the Earth Tree. One of them seems like it's wrapped around the other, almost as if ensnaring it. And the other is the amber sap that's leaking from the tree. I believe it's referred to as primordial gold if you add these questions, but they said this shit used to flow from the Earth Tree, back in the good old days. I think there's a big possibility that this DLC can show us or possibly even take place in the Crucible of Life. And that person writing Torrent isn't Mikola, it isn't Godwin, it's actually Marika. See, my theory has always been that the Greater Will, whatever it was, it crashed and lodged itself into the Great Tree. And from there it just started taking over the Great Tree and sort of assimilating it, with the finished product being the Erd Tree, which would be why the Crucible is always referred to as the Erd Tree in its primordial form. Basically, the Erd Tree before it became the Erd Tree. And I think the people of the lands between, before that, they worshipped like the Great Tree or something, and then when the Crucible, or whatever that space parasite was that crashed into it and became the Crucible, started happening, that's when the lands between started to change. And maybe we'll get to see all of that in this DLC, or at least some of it, how the lands became the lands we know. And shit, if it's taking place during this time, there's probably...
For future me.
IU Online offers you world-class education that's within your reach. Earn a globally recognized...
Shut up. Come on, why you put ads up as fucking videos, bro? Like, who the fuck would click that? Nobody would click that. I can't even go back. Jesus fucking Christ. I forgot what I was gonna say.
Just whipped up these Morningstar Farms veggie sausage breakfast sandwiches. Can use the protein after a long...
Shut up.
Some of it, how the lands became the lands we know. And shit, if it's taking place during this time, there's probably other outer gods' influence running rampant all over the lands between because there was no order at this point. Maybe there will be an old rock god to steal away. Maybe it'll turn out that we're the blind swordsman that mentored Melania, which would be similar to the whole Artorias thing. Now, I don't think that's going to happen or anything, but it's, it's a possibility with how FromSoft our games work. But I think if it takes place during this time frame, then we could see a good portion of America's rise to power, if you will. And maybe we'll finally learn what happened to the Dusk-Eyed Queen, or maybe if America actually was the Dusk-Eyed Queen, like some people seem to believe. And again, maybe we'll learn a little bit about America's goals, but I think that if nothing else, we'll just become...
The Glomad Queen is the sword, the same way that fucking Radagon became a sword. She was probably married to Placidusax. Yeah, there's a lot of shit in Elden Ring that they straight up tell you that people just speculate on. She clearly wasn't Melina. Melina is the other half of Ranni. Because Empyreans are born as twins? Maybe? I don't know. No. No. That wouldn't make sense. Or that would make sense for the case of fucking America's kids. Whatever. I'm not an Elden Ring lore channel.
A little bit about America's goals, but I think that if nothing else, we'll just become more confused as to what her goals were after we finish playing this DLC. But yeah, I definitely think it's a big possibility that this takes place either during her conquest, during her rise, or during the Crucible. And like I've been saying, a trip to the past isn't exactly foreign to FromSoft games. But anyway, now I'll even take this one step further and say that I think that promotional image that we've seen for Shadow of the Erdtree is actually depicting Marika when she first arrived to the Lands Between, because it said she was a Newman, and Newmans are said to be from another world and another place entirely. And judging by how the Erdtree/Great Tree currently looks, there's a good chance that it might be set during the dawn of the Erdtree, as I like to call it. I'm not saying for sure this is what that image is depicting, but it seems like almost the most likely to me. I know I'm probably wrong on this. It's not exactly an out of left field prediction or anything. But let me know what you guys think of what the image is depicting, because I always like seeing different interpretations. Or perhaps the DLC is like the Ring City and it actually takes place after the main game. Although that might be kind of hard given that there's like 5 possible endings and only a few of them end with the Erdtree and Golden Order being reestablished in a somewhat different way. So time skip after the ending might be less likely, but we might still explore those possibilities too. However, I think that it's most likely that if there's no time travel or time skip involved, this will very often in the game, so there's some more Ashley Miranda, Old Hunter, and Victoria for this one forward, even though the game is involved some degree of time travel. I'm going to say that those DLCs could be active well before the ending of the game, and it doesn't really take place after the ending of this game. So judging by that one interview we do have, it's safe to assume that the DLC will either explore Nicola or maybe even Goblin a bit more, since those two were the undeveloped main demigods and we don't really get to encounter. We only ever see the aftermath of what they become. Now, if following the story is probably what most people expected, it's what I expected the first, or at least one of the DLCs would be about. I know a lot of people thought maybe one would be about Ranni and what became of her great ruin, and that's still possible. Maybe it could even be a little bit. But I've always felt like Nicola would be one of the things that we would learn more about in a DLC or something. He's always been that he and his twin sister Melina were born of one god, unlike their siblings who are each born of 2 gods, but they're still considered demigods. And for whatever reason, they were each born cursed in a different way than Mog and Morgoth were. Melina was born with an old rock god inside her. Nicola was stuck being the conqueror. Nicola would go on to create a bunch of Golden Order incantations, mostly out of the desire to find a way within the Golden Order to cure his sister. Now, when that failed him, he sort of rejected the Golden Order entirely and sought to establish his own world logic and order with the Hallowed Tree. Now, I'm not going to go into how much I think America was involved with this plan because I'll save that for my Radagon is a Science Project video. But Mikola would invite all those who the Golden Order had spurned, anything that was said to not belong under the rule of the Erdtree. You know, the Alvanorics, the Misbegotten, the
What the fuck?
ancestral followers, even a Deathbird and a Magmahorn found their way out to his lands. We know his grand ambitions would never be realized, though, because he was kidnapped by Mog while he was still slumbering away growing the Hallowed Tree. And since Melania was away fighting in the Shattering, there wasn't really anything that could have stopped Mog from doing this. He pretty much got off and got away scot-free.
Just a couple of people who totally got off, bro.
Now, some people believe that
Yo,
Mikola
what the
was with
fuck?
Mog willingly because, I don't know, maybe he needed help from another outer god to take out the Greater Will. I find this possibility unlikely, but there's plenty of lore videos you could watch on this subject. Maybe we'll find out what really happens in this DLC if it does indeed follow Mikola. Personally, I just hope we find out a little bit more about what Marika's grand design or her grand plan was. She had her hand in just about every scheme that was going on in the Shattering and post-Shattering, and obviously everything that happened before those two big events. But I can't quite get a clear picture of her grand goal without being heavily speculative to get to that point. So again, I'll spare you that rambling and save it for the Radagon video. But as with most FromSoft games, this DLC could just pose way more questions than it answers. For all I know, it could make Marika's goals and the motives behind her actions even more alien to me. But I definitely think this DLC will focus heavily on Mikola, possibly about what Mog's intentions were, although we're pretty, I'm pretty certain we know what those are. But since we're just spitballing today, let's recap, shall we? Mog is the demigod son of Marika and the Elden Lord Godfrey. He's the twin brother of Morgoth, and unlike his brother, he completely embraced being an omen and being cursed in his cursed blood. So much so that he started worshipping the Blood Star, or the Formless Mother. You know, the outer god that has to do with blood and probably is behind why the Land of Reeds is so fucked. So yeah, Mog starts worshipping this blood entity, and he wants to be the lord of this new dynasty, the Moglin dynasty. And to accomplish this, he needed an Empyrean. Empyreans are unique demigods that were chosen as possible candidates to replace Queen Marika the Eternal as the vassal of the Greater Will. So Mog wanted to do something similar, but with this Formless Mother, the Bloodstar. So he kidnaps Mikola, the only Empyrean that he was capable of kidnapping. Not like he stood much a chance against Melania or Ranni. So he kidnaps Mikola and brings him back home to his palace, his evil lair. And now it's quite clear he's trying to turn Mikola into like a host or a vassal for the Formless Mother, similar to how Marika is the vassal of the Greater Will. And he's stylizing himself as this new Lord of Blood, which is similar to how his father Godfrey was the Elden Lord, the first one. And since Mog is crazy, he believes this is going to work. I mean, you can't really blame him. He's a demigod. He's the son of the first Elden Lord. And I must say, his ego is impressive for being the demigod equivalent of one of those grotesque kids that the parents...
One, we don't know that Mikola was a boy, confirmed, because he appeared as a woman. Two, we don't know if it's not going to work just because the lore says that he's a boy, because they are demigods, and clearly shit doesn't work the same. And this is why fucking white people that know a little bit of Japanese start clowning on fucking Americans like no fucking American person ever can understand.
Slop
Take
away in
shit
the
too
attic
literally,
when you see your
bro.
movie.
It's a story.
So yeah, Mog's a bit of a megalomaniac, and he's attempting to usher in a new era in the only way he knows how. It's honestly kind of adorable if it wasn't for the whole rapey aspect of it. Now I think maybe we'll find out in this DLC whether or not Mikola went on his own, or he was kidnapped, and whether or not Mog was just a crazy idiot, or he was actually onto something. Now, I'm not ruling out the possibility of the Formless Mother having been reborn in some way inside Mikola, or perhaps some of the Formless Mother's power has been brought into the Lands Between and reborn into Mikola's new body, or whatever the hell's going on in that cocoon. But one interesting thing I noticed in that one frame that we have for the Shadow of the Erdtree is the ghostly tombstones and like the spirit banners and lampposts. Now that reminds me of the afterlife that we're told very little about throughout the game. But back before the Erdtree, death used to be carried out or handled by the Deathbirds. The dead would be burned in the cold ghost flame, and the ashes would be scraped away by these Deathbirds. The spirits of the worthy would find their way to these lampposts and eventually make their way to the afterlife. The unworthy spirits were turned into rancor, vengeful, wraith-like skull heads that can be summoned using death sorcery. We see another form of this with those who died cursed and their spirits turn into wraiths, which can be summoned by omen barons. I think that's another example of how when the greater will tries to write something out of the Golden Order, it always sort of finds itself coming back in this twisted way. And it tried to write out death and rancors, presumably, but not only are rancors back, but there's now wraiths. All because the greater will was trying to write out death and humans with horns in the Golden Order. Kind of goofy. They're kind of getting what they deserve, but this is not the video for that. So I definitely think that we might also learn a little bit about the Prince of Death. I know that Mikola and Godwin were at least cool in some way, as it seems like Mikola established Fort Soul, and the entire purpose of Fort Soul was to drain the sun of all of its energy, to reborn all of the dead demigods. Godwin. This whole project was probably devoted to reviving or putting to rest Godwin, and the other demigods were probably just test subjects to see if they could work on Godwin. Again, that's just a theory, and I'm getting kind of rambly, so I'll probably cut this off shortly. But I have one more possibility.
Let's let this in. Not the best one. Definitely not your best one.
The chicken's gonna be perfect. You can describe it all day long, but you gotta taste it to understand it.
Throughout all of humanity's history, several rare and unique ceremonies and rituals have been practiced by people all over the globe for reasons ranging from culture or country, or as we're going to be talking about today, religion. And perhaps one of the most interesting and morbid practices ever recorded is that of self-mummification. In Japan's northern mountains lie select groups of Buddhist monks who practice the act of self-mummification, or living mummification. And for such a relatively small practice within the whole scope of Buddhism, it is fascinating how popular this idea has become. And despite there being several rumors and myths around the idea of living mummification, that we'll talk about today, the practice itself is well about. For this video, I want to tell you all about the strange act of self-mummification. I was doing research into a lot of the more obscure practices and
Shit. Whatever, fuck it. We'll go ahead and listen to fucking town now, bro. I'm gonna get upset and turn this shit off. If it ever fucking reloads.
saying that this has all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation, which kicked off the entire thing of discrediting the story. And it was at the behest of the Biden campaign. And this has now been reported, verified. Fucking nobody's talking about this.
Yeah, we actually covered that on my podcast yesterday, and it's so insane that somebody from a presidential campaign could reach out to Connection in our intelligence agencies to get them to establish a letter with the names of 50 different intelligence officials on it, saying that there's Russian disinformation. So now you have the added element of them blaming the foreign power for something that is unbelievably irresponsible, so that they can try to get their candidate elected. And Trump was indicted because his campaign supposedly, paid off Stormy Daniels at his behest, and they should have disclosed that. That's a greater example of corruption than the deep state operating at the behest of a member of a presidential campaign.
Take a look at this. We got this story from Spiked. And I always love to give you guys the NewsGuard certification, 100 out of 100. That's right. It is NewsGuard certified. And people are like, that's the government. So the government certified it, call it whatever you want. Joe Biden's sinister disinformation campaign. They say last week it was revealed that shortly before the 2020 election, Joe Biden's presidential campaign conspired with 51 former spies to discredit the New York Post discoveries in the Hunter Biden laptop. That is to say, a person running for office conspired with government officials to discredit a news story that could harm their campaign.
And by the way, when Michael Morell was asked under oath why he did it, he said it was because he wanted Joe Biden to be elected. He just straight up said that.
Because you can get away with it, right? It's a two-tier system.
Yeah. They let you when you're famous.
Oh my god. Oof. So, well, there you go. Does this mean that the country doesn't exist or something?
It means it's not our country anymore.
Yeah, it's like being worn as a skin suit by a cult. Creepy, corrupt individuals. Just do whatever they want. We're sitting here watching. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right with it. I think.
Yeah. No, I'm doing all right with it.
Obviously, talk about this a bit. My hope is not in this world. I think we could still win this battle, though.
No, I think we're winning. I think it simply comes down to the reason they're going after kids so much is because they know that if they don't, they're done. 20 years from now, all these conservative kids are going to be like, I vote against you. And they're not going to have kids because, they sterilize and abort them. So,
But also, the thing is, if they do go after the kids and really normalize pedophilia, as they're clearly starting to do and gearing up to do, then there's no way for us to win. Like, once that is taken from you, once they win that, there's nothing.
I just disagree. I mean, there's too much required to get to that point where a conservative can't just move to the middle of nowhere and keep their kids away from the stuff.
Yeah, but the fact that you have to move to the middle of nowhere to get away from people trying to abuse your kids means you have lost the society.
You actually can't do that now because now California and I forget what other state, but another state as well, have passed laws.
Washington.
Was it Washington? Was this you talking about the sanctuary thing? They passed laws that if you're in a marital dispute over your child transitioning, one parent can take that child and go to California, and then that case will be adjudicated in California, not in the state of the other parent. So basically, you can kidnap your kid. And then there was another law that was passed in California that was, I can't remember if it passed or if it's set to be passed, but that's basically instructing judges that when they hear these kinds of cases, essentially telling them to lean in favor of transitioning being in the welfare of the child. So in other words, you can move to wherever you want to, but if you're in the U.S., and you have a dispute with your spouse over this, your spouse can just take your kid to California. So you don't have to safe harbor.
And there was also something else I saw the other day about, I'd have to pull up the state again, but they just passed legislation saying that these shelters don't have to report runaways to their parent if they're identified as trans, and that's why they run away.
Your kid can check into a residential rehab facility without the consent of their parents. It just takes like a social worker or a psychologist.
And under the abortion services also did a transition therapy. I don't know if surgery is included, but some without the consent of the parents.
Well, and this is the new paradigm, right? Historically, parents have the final say over what happens to their child, and if the government is going to get involved, they need to prove that they have a very good reason. They need to demonstrate that this child is being abused to the point where the state has to step in. Now it's the exact opposite. The state has the final say over what your kid gets to do. The parent has to prove that they should have their concerns heard about their own child.
The law in California that is just referred to, actually, the law was they took the existing statute which said that a kid can take a residential rehab facility if number one, that the parents are social workers and number two, that kid has been abused or a victim of incest in the household. In those cases, the prior law was, in those cases, that kid could go to a residential rehab facility without the parents' consent. That's a good law. That makes sense, right? The new law just struck out the part about abuse or victim of incest.
Well, we're going to compare to the abuses for not letting you transition the kids.
Because it's projection. Because the left never says, we're not doing that, or what we're doing isn't as bad as what you think. They say, you're doing it. We're not abusing these kids. You're abusing these kids.
So it's state kidnapping.
Yep.
I mean, that's basically what it is. It's the state is allowed to kidnap your kid. So, like, I didn't watch the full video with what Biden said. I watched the little segment where he was talking about, you don't own your kids or whatever. So I don't want to speak to what the context was. I don't want to be surprised. But it is sort of like in the context of these laws that are being passed, I feel like in the, I tweeted about this, like 20 years ago, the religious right used to talk about how the left wanted to destroy the nuclear family. And at the time, I thought that was ridiculous and hyperbole, and it probably was ridiculous and hyperbole at the time. But now it's hard to, it's like, well, that's actually what these laws amount to. They're saying that the parent doesn't need to give consent, that the biggest threats to the children come from the parents, that the state and psychologists and social workers need to take custody and protect them from their parents.
Yeah, well, what is sanctuary space now for sex offenders?
What did Joe Biden just say today, Shane? He said that you don't basically you don't want your child. Like it's not you or a kid, it's not someone else's kid, it's the nation's kid, to paraphrase. It's creepy. Yeah, it's extremely creepy.
I get the stuff. You can't tell me to sniff that hair. When you get those hairs in my nostrils.
But I think to what you're saying, that it's probably true that your average liberal person 20 years ago wasn't going about the revolutionary change that they were trying to do in the state by saying, I want to destroy the family. But all of the intellectual thought leaders of the left going back decades did openly say that that was their goal.
True.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, the radical fringe of the left was definitely saying those things, like the nuclear.
It doesn't matter what the sheep believe. They're the fucking sheep, you idiot.
There's a radical fringe of the left.
They signed up for it, you fucking retard.
Now, I mean, so that's the difference, right?
They
It's
hitched their
normal-
wagon to it.
normal liberals, definitely, it's.
So you can't say it didn't exist.
Don't want to destroy the nuclear family.
Because then what the fuck did they sign up for?
Those radical fringe. Now,
It's so hard to just say, yeah, I guess I was wrong. I guess I was fucking wrong. I'm gonna talk myself out of this hole. I guess I was wrong.
But certainly state legislators in California, so now this stuff is becoming law.
It's gonna spread because they're what's happening on the left right now too is they're working with younger people to get them elected into these offices. Moms Demand Action, some of the anti-gun organizations are working with 18 to 24-year-olds to teach them and train them how to get into these positions so they can start working off from the inside and expanding that.
Is that Colin?
Yeah. Welcome to the new country, I guess. I'm still confident that we're going to win though. I just think it's math. We can talk about all the things they want to do to kids and how they want to create these sanctuary states, but the reality is if you keep your kids away from this cultural influence, they've lost. So I think part of what you're saying is that when people do the right thing and have good ideas and behave virtuously, in the long run they win because people who are doing bad things and behaving in vicious ways end up eating themselves alive.
I don't know why I even ever give this show a chance, man. All they do is fucking lecture me. It's tiresome. It's tiresome. We aren't advancing any ideas or anything. I'm just kissing each other's ass and giving everybody else a lecture. Like, you gotta come off it, dudes. You gotta fucking come off it. I can't. It's grating. It's grating to hear. Constantly. I don't want my shit to get fucking. I'm not re-uploading today. I've had enough problems. Alright, I lost half my fucking workout. Wisecrack, are you gaslighting people? That's the question.